Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. In this episode, we've got a ton of stuff to talk about. We've got a break-in at a church in Omaha, Nebraska, where a lady broke in and tried to stab the priest in the rectory. We've got a bathroom peeper setting up cameras in the bathroom in another state. We've got a knife fight between kids on a church parking lot. Just like every week, we always have a stabbing, a shooting. Although I don't think we have a shooting this week. We have stabbing, usually have a shooting, tons of embezzlement, tons of sex crimes. We're going to break it all down. But before we start, if you want free training for all the church security teams out there, if you're a concealed carrier, this might benefit you as well. Head on over to christianwarriortraining.com where we have free training for you to have. It's my gift to you for my fellow Christians. Now, most of my videos on YouTube get demonetized. If you want to support what I'm doing here in training and getting out information to church security teams for free, head on over to christianwarriortraining.com where you can get a free subscription and free training to get all the latest information on crime occurring at churches, best tactics for church security teams. But if you want to support me, you can do a paid subscription. That will help me keep all of this stuff running and keep things going here as well. Some of the things we have in store coming up, we're looking at less than lethal options for those of you stuck behind enemy lines in California, Canada, New York, Illinois. We're looking at less lethal options like pepper ball guns and stuff like that. We just did filming today. Hopefully we'll be bringing that out to you in the next couple of weeks. Check out my social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You'll find me at Christian Warrior Training, where we put a lot of that stuff up before it hits YouTube. All right, let's get into the program today. Let's talk about all the crime that's happened over the last week at churches. Now, the one thing I want you to remember when we dive into this crime, a lot of you are going to want to buckle down and basically make your churches become bunkers. Don't do that. Keep them open, keep them free. We want people to come to Christ and come in. Don't freak out. Just be smart and just keep your head on a swivel. All right, let's head over to Omaha right now. This is Cabrini Catholic Rectory in South Omaha, armed with a knife. Now, in this incident occurred around 6 a.m. It led to a priest having to barricade himself inside of the rectory after being threatened with a knife by this woman. Now, the Omaha Police Department SWAT team came in and rescued him, and then they eventually had to gas her out, which you see here. They had to gas her out, and then she eventually gave up. Now, one of the things that I like doing when I give these news descriptions of what's going on, I like to give you some hints on what to do to prevent something like this from happening at your church. Some of the things that you can do include making sure that your doors and your windows are all locked. Church rectories have been getting hammered hard lately. I don't know if it's because they're unlocked, if people aren't taking security measures, but you want reinforced entry points, an alarm, burglar alarm, and a fire alarm. So that way, if it goes off, the police get contacted. You want all of these things to make sure that your church stays safe. A majority of churches do not even have alarms, either a fire or a burglar alarm. And a lot of people just have superficial locks where they can easily break in. Okay, next up, we got a church burglary that leads to a high-speed pursuit and an arrest in Peeper County in Ohio. Now, Douglas Vanderpool, he was 29 from Trotwood. He's been formally charged following a high-speed chase with Peeper County deputies after breaking into a church in Butler County, Ohio. The incident occurred when a witness reported a burglary of a Madison Township church on February 27th. The suspect led deputies on a pursuit from Camden to the 1500 block of North Barron Street, where after deploying a tire deflation device, which is also known as spike strips, his vehicle was stopped and he attempted to flee on foot. He was apprehended with the assistance of the sheriff's deputy canine and treated for minor injuries. I hope those minor injuries included bite wounds from the dog. If the canine handler is watching this, you got a good boy on your hands. Make sure you give him an extra cookie for the day. He faces multiple felony misdemeanor charges, including failure to comply with an order of a police officer, vandalism, receiving stolen property, and resisting arrest. More charges are going to come for this young man. Now, I'll continue to preach that all churches need burglar and fire alarms and sturdy door hardware and entry points that are hardened. You are easy targets, and times are changing very quickly. Next up is kind of a nice story. This happens in Cloquet, Minnesota, where they had a significant damage done to the church. $200,000 vandalism that happened to this church. It was done by a guy named Matthew David Powers, or alleged to have been done by Matthew David Powers, who's 39. He vandalized the property, again, causing $200,000 in damages. During the late night burglary, he flooded the church by leaving a garden hose on and then did other destructive things. Now, despite this extensive damage, which misplaced the congregants for over 2 months, the church's lead pastor, Mike Stevens, expressed forgiveness towards Powers and highlighted the incident as an opportunity for the church to grow stronger. Now, Powers has since been sober for 202 days and was sentenced to 3 years of supervised probation after pleading guilty to second-degree burglary with conditions including following treatment recommendations and refraining from alcohol and drug use. Now, the community support played a crucial role in the church's recovery, with insurance covering the damages in the congregation not seeking restitution. Pastor Stevens emphasized forgiveness and redemption, offering Powers a message of hope for a future filled with joy, peace, and purpose. Now, let me ask you, could you be as forgiving? I want to be. Let's go back to Colossians 3:13. Colossians 3:13 says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." I would want forgiveness. Absolutely. I want the Lord to forgive me. It is really hard for us to see something like this. $200,000 damage, displaced for 2 months. Very difficult to suck that up and say, I forgive you. So let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think about forgiveness in an incident like this. Okay, next up, we got some controversial comments made by a pastor in Monroe, North Carolina. For the second consecutive Sunday, community members gathered outside Bible Baptist Tabernacle to express their outrage over Pastor Bobby Leonard's controversial remarks. Now, this pastor made statements suggesting women could be blamed for sexual assault based on their attire, even stating he wouldn't convict a man accused of rape if the woman was wearing shorts. Now, this has led to protests calling for accountability and raised concerns about the funding of Tabernacle Christian School, which is connected to the church. Now, the school's received over $900,000 in public taxpayer funds through a state voucher program for both 2023 and 2024. Community members are questioning the allocation of these funds. Now, I am not saying what the pastor said is right or wrong. What I do want to do is I want to highlight the need for you to prepare for protests at your church. Now, my church is viewed by some people as anti-gay, anti-Muslim, and anti-LDS. When people decide they want to protest your church, you should have some kind of an action plan ready to go. Now, that would include strengthening entry points, having evacuation plans, and liaising with police to protect your church. So I want to ask you, what is your plan to deal with protesters if they come to your church? I think we have an article over at Christian Warrior Training right now that would tell you how to deal with these types of people if this happens at your church. But we want to make sure that we protect our church and protect our people while they're worshiping God. Okay, next up, we got a homicide investigation at a Tampa church. Now, the Tampa Police Department is currently investigating a homicide case after a woman's body was discovered outside the Iglesia de Dios Church of God in the 5700 block of North Nebraska Avenue in Tampa. She was found early in the morning on March 4th. The discovery was made around 8:04 a.m. with the crime scene marked off by police tape. Now, according to initial reports, the victim suffered from upper body trauma, although details surrounding her death are still being pieced together by investigators. The identity of the woman has not been released pending notification of her next of kin. Local residents and community leaders expressed their dismay about what is occurring with this incident, and they are worried about other violent crimes that have occurred in the area. Now, each week I remind you that people view churches as a place of sanctuary. So criminals are going to often gravitate towards a church. Now, it's unknown if the body was dumped there or that is where the murder happened. Either way, if you discover this in the morning at your church, don't touch anything. Don't enter the crime scene. Just block everything off, seal it off, and wait for the police to come. We don't want to contaminate that crime scene. Okay, next up, we have a Marathon, Florida pastor that's charged with sexual battery of a minor. Now, Monty Lavelle Chitty, what a weird name, Chitty. You know what I'm thinking when I say his name. He's a 62-year-old pastor at First Baptist Marathon in Marathon, Florida. He was arrested for allegedly sexually battering a 15-year-old girl who was under the influence of alcohol at the church premises. Now, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation following an anonymous tip about the incident. According to the investigation, the victim was given alcohol that she suspected had been spiked, leading to her losing consciousness. Now, upon waking, she found Chitty molesting her. The investigation also revealed incriminating text messages between Chitty and the victim, corroborating her account of the events. Now, Chitty, who had also registered as a volunteer pastor with the sheriff's office, is now facing multiple charges, including sexual battery of a minor, lewd and lascivious conduct, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and is being held without bond. Now, where you have one sexual assault victim, you always have more. So you need to keep that in mind when you have something like this occur, or if you have something like this occur at your church. You also don't want to be one of those churches that buries everything like nothing happened and try and hide it because you're embarrassed. That is totally the wrong thing to do, but a lot of churches still do that, and that is against the Bible. You should not be doing that. You should be coming forward and then helping any other victims that may be around. Next up, we got a dog attack behind a Coaling church in Alabama where a woman was injured. Now, a woman's recovering from injuries sustained during a dog attack that occurred behind a church on Sunday afternoon. Michelle Battles experienced a harrowing ordeal when resulted in a deep gash below her right eye and scratches above her eye and cuts on her lips. She was attempting to feed a 40-pound border collie that was tied up behind her church after services on Sunday. The attack happened, again, right after the morning service, and she felt compelled to assist a homeless man and his daughter by providing food for them and their dog. Now, despite the dog initially appearing friendly, it unexpectedly attacked Battles as she was feeding it. She required several stitches and rabies shots as a result of the incident, but has decided not to press charges against the dog's owner because of their homeless status. She is expected to fully recover. Now, just a few weeks ago, I reported an incident where church security shot and killed a dog at their church. Now, you want to know your force options on dogs. I wrote an article about this in Christian Warrior Training, where you can get free training. In the newsletter, I wrote about different ways to deal with dogs. So lethal force could be necessary, but it's got a lot of downsides, including missing the dog and hitting somebody else. Pepper spray is a good option. I always keep telling you bear spray is an option, especially with something like this. Beanbag rounds fired out of a shotgun, fire extinguishers, they all work well to stop dogs. Next up, we got this impersonator that steals from a Queens, New York City church rectory. Here we are again with a Catholic church rectory getting hit. This is at the American Martyrs Roman Catholic Church in Hollis Hills, Queens. A thief disguised as a visiting priest managed to steal $900 in cash from a 63-year-old priest's bedroom. This incident occurred around 12:20 on Sunday, with the criminal convincing the victim of his false identity and gaining access to the rectory. Now, after committing the theft, the impersonator fled the scene in a dark-colored sedan. The NYPD has released this image of the suspect in hopes that the public can assist in identifying him. Now, New York Catholic churches have been getting hit quite a bit lately, and they've been in almost every issue of the Church Crime Weekly that I've had for the last several weeks. Many of these churches don't have security teams. There's been stabbings and other things as well. The other city showing up consistently is Memphis, Tennessee. Now, if you are in those two cities and you're a Christian, just keep your head on a swivel, because bad things have been happening there. Next up, we got a former church member charged with threatening mass violence. I know his head's cut off there. I'm sorry, but I can't make his booking photo show up there. This happened in Elon, North Carolina. A former member of the Friendship Baptist Church, identified as Kevin Wayne Dillard, has been charged with communicating a threat of mass violence at the church. The incident occurred on the evening of Saturday, when Dillard was barred from entering the church by a security team member due to alleged threatening remarks that he had made. The church's pastor was notified, and he contacted the Alamance County Sheriff's Office. Now, they did an investigation, and they found probable cause to arrest Dillard with a felony. He was apprehended and placed into custody. Look, this is a good job all around. Church security did a great job. If somebody says that they're going to shoot you up, you can 100% guarantee that's going to happen. So mercy and forgiveness is good, but we need to make sure that this person is arrested so that you can prevent that person from carrying out their threat that they made to you. They also need to get help with get counseling for their anger issue, but you've got to follow up on this. Next up, we got a man that was arrested after being rescued from behind a wall in a Los Angeles church. Now, this happened in downtown Los Angeles, and this all unfolded when a man became trapped behind a brick wall inside a church on South Hill Street. The event occurred early in the morning, prompting a response from emergency crews, who discovered the man in a precarious position behind the wall at the Tapestry LA church. Now, through the use of sledgehammers and other tools, firefighters managed to free the man, who was then taken into police custody after being evaluated by paramedics and found to be in good condition. Now, initially, there were some suggestions that the individual might have been involved in a burglary attempt, but there are no other details. We know he's in police custody, but that's all we know. So I'm just going to keep repeating it. Every church needs to have a burglar and a fire alarm, reinforced entry points, and a 4K video system. All right, next up, we're headed to Ontario, Canada, and Peterborough, where there was a serious incident involving students from Adam Scott Collegiate Vocational Institute. Now, there was a stabbing in the church parking lot of a Presbyterian church and involved a 15-year-old boy who sustained non-life-threatening injuries and a 15-year-old girl from Peterborough, and she's been arrested in connection with the event. Now, this interaction drew a large group of youth and resulted in the boy being hospitalized. Now, there's not a lot you can do when a bunch of kids decide to show up and start shanking each other in your church. Just remember, if this does happen, go ahead and lock all the doors, put armed security out front, rescue any people that need to be rescued, but wait for the police to show up and deal with it. Next up, we get a man recording 2 women in a Collinsville church in Illinois. Now, according to the report, Wayne Stombaugh faces charges for allegedly recording 2 women in the restroom of Unity Spiritual Center. The 60-year-old Missouri resident was described as a regular attendee of the church, and he's implicated in unauthorized video recording incidents that occurred in June and July of last year. Now, the local community expressed shock and concern over the safety breach in a place considered sacred. He's been barred from the church, but one of the things that I would suggest to you is this happens pretty frequently, maybe not in the church setting, but this happens in the real world all the time. I would suggest having your janitors and your safety team check the bathrooms each day before service. So where are you going to look for any kind of a recording device? Many times they put the recording devices in a vent. Other times they're going to simply disguise a camera in an ordinary object. So just know that you should add bathroom checks to your usual patrol detail that you have. All right, don't forget, you can head over to christianwarriortraining.com, get free training, sign up for our newsletter, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, you can do a paid subscription. That always helps keep the lights on and helps me get all this equipment and everything else that helps me bring all this news to you. I appreciate it. One of the most important things that you can do, though, to protect your church is to remember your ABCs. Always be caring.